Further, welcome everyone. We are missing two of our committee members. Wendy and Truda are not available for today, but I do welcome everyone else and our staff members, Sue Brown, who's going to be keeping us in order, and Bart Joby from the Buildings Department. Thank you both for helping us out. And welcome Maureen Smithers too. But anyway, we have a few things to go through. Prior to that, I will ask you to join me in a moment of reflection before we begin the meeting. The pecuniary interest, any disclosure? If nothing right now, but if something does come along a little later in the meeting, feel free to announce that. I have a message here about public participation. Members of the public are encouraged to provide the committee with their comments and questions. Presentations must be prearranged with legislative services before the agenda is released. Members of the public who wish to make a deputation about a specific agenda item at the meeting must register in advance with legislative services by 4 p.m. on November 12th, 2024, by contacting the clerk at meaford.ca 519-538-1060, extension 1110. Presentations are limited to 10 minutes and deputations are limited to 5 minutes. And today we are fortunate to have Maureen Smithers, program and DF coordinator from Breaking Down Barriers. And Maureen's going to, she's got a great presentation for us. So you, if everyone is ready, you go ahead, Maureen. Welcome.
Great. Thank you very much for having me. So this presentation I fondly call BDB 101. So I will try very hard to keep it under 10 minutes. It might be 11 and a half, but we'll see how we do. So if you're not familiar with breaking down barriers, let me just take that back. We're physically located in Collingwood, downtown Collingwood, a lovely old home there. But our service area is actually Grey Bruce Simcoe. So we, anywhere from, Owen Sound, north, down, across, through Meaford, through Thornbury, over to Collingwood, then we go on to Stayner, and then up to Midland, and down to Orillia and Barrie, and all the way south to Tottenham, Alliston, in that area. So we have a huge service area. So we've been on a bit of a tour trying to get out to accessibility committees and different groups who may not know about us or aren't familiar with what we do. So welcome to BDB 101. So we work with people with diverse disabilities, and we provide services and supports, whatever that looks like for the person who's reached out to us or we've been directed to provide assistance. It can be everything from helping somebody understand ODSP, to finding housing, to learning how to address an envelope, to understanding how to use technology. It's a wide range of services. Keyword, not one I think I need to describe to this group, but what's a disability? So a disability is something physical, sensory, cognitive, or developmental condition that impairs an individual's ability to get through their day. It's a wide scope. So quick disability overview: hearing, deafblind, vision, intellectual, mental health, physical speech. No doubt you're familiar with this as a group, but we always like to include this because often when we think about a disability, the general public thinks about a disability, they consider somebody using a mobility device and they forget about all the other types of things that go on. So statistics, which you may be familiar with, basically 1 in 5 Canadians aged 15 years or older have at least one disability. Many have more. We are learning through our experience at breaking down barriers, and through statistics and just general knowledge that as we age, we're all developing a disability of some sort. I know personally, I'm running into that every day. Seems to be a bit of a mystery on what's going to, whether it's my memory, my vision, something physical is going on that didn't exist 5 years ago. So our vision at Breaking Down Barriers is to create a community with access to resources that enable and support people with diverse disabilities and their network to participate in society without barriers. Hence the name Breaking Down Barriers. We were founded by 3 individuals, but we're very excited that one of our founding members, which by the way, was almost 40 years ago, will turn 40 in February, is a woman named Catherine Bloomfield. And to this day, she sits on our board of directors. So we're a focal point in the community. As I mentioned, for almost 40 years, we've been providing resources and programs. We receive support from a number of community services, home and community care, community connection, the Collingwood Hospital are big supporters of us, South Georgian Bay. We're also very excited. You may be familiar with the Ontario Health Networks or the Ontario Health Teams. Collingwood, our BDB was founding member of the South Georgian Bay health team. So important. We are a voice at the table, literally with the ministry. So the word we use, and you may be familiar with this, is consumers. We're actually talking about changing that word to clients. Consumers being people who somehow utilize our resources and services. So perhaps you're attending a program. Perhaps you're phoning me to find out if you can come to Meaford. Is there anything here that will help you get through your day as somebody who might need accommodations or accessible features of some part? So we work with people, as I said, to help them live as vital and important members of our community, because they are. So we have an overview of our programs. We subscribe to the concept that there's certain skills we can provide to people that will help them do those things. Independence and accessibility is different for everybody. So we work to allow somebody to live their life independently, whatever their independence means. So how do we do that? We have independent living skills programs. We offer peer support. We have a group specifically to support people living with diabetes. And that's wonderful because we work a lot with the different diabetes nurse educators in the communities. One of our wonderful things we've had going on since 2021, this came out a little bit out of the whole pandemic thing, is we have a Connecting with Seniors program, and it's a completely virtual program. And it services 140 to 170 seniors per month from 44 different communities in Simcoe Grey Bruce. And this is a program where we get together, we do crafts, we have guest speakers. We're building a community of support and understanding for the senior being 55 plus, of people who, particularly during the pandemic, were struggling. They were isolated. They didn't know how to reach out. They couldn't get to their euchre game. They couldn't do things that had been part of their daily life. So we tried to fill that gap. What is really wonderful about this program is part of that we realized a lot of people don't have the technology to participate in online things. So lo and behold, we applied for some grants and we are able to supply iPads, iPad training, technology training, how to work an iPhone. And we do it in a number of ways. We can do it online, or I've been to many people's homes or met in coffee shops and helped them through how to join Zoom, how you can participate in our program. And then 9 times out of 10, it becomes, how do I send a picture to my granddaughter? How do I stream into her Christmas concert? How do I do whatever? So it's gone beyond the scope of just being able to participate in Breaking Down Barriers program. It's become about being independent in the community. And we find a lot of our seniors are more comfortable speaking to us than to their children, because children aren't always nice about things. Don't know. It's a different frustration level, right? So some of you may be aware of a program called direct funding. So direct funding is a provincially funded program. It has been for, I'm going to get this wrong, I think close to 40 years. Every different political government we've had in Ontario has supported this program, which into itself is mind-blowing. Breaking Down Barriers is a facilitator, and we act as a resource center for this program. So it allows people who have a physical disability to hire attendants, people to come in and help, whatever that looks like for them, by providing funding to do that. It's an application process. You're given taxpayer money based on what your needs are. You are basically set up as a business and work independently. It's a very, there's an accountability, literally an accountability system that comes with that. And breaking down barriers, we help that person go through that process from telling them about the program to the application to whatever may come up while they're on the program. This program is a game changer for people. If you've ever had to call services in to come help you shower or help a loved one shower, you're sometimes told you can shower on Thursday at 1 o'clock. Well, that might not work. This program allows you to set and establish your own schedule. So a big part of what we do is, work with this program, and we have a number of participants across our service area. So some numbers at a glance, just so you get a scope of what we're doing. So our program participants over the last year, over 9,000, close to 10,000 people. We somehow threw together 276, I think it says, 276 programs. We have a very active social media. If it's a social media platform, we are there somehow. So we are on, we've had over 7,000 programs, and that includes videos. Maybe we've recorded a guest speaker. We're now on YouTube, we're on Instagram, we're everywhere. So there's no reason you or somebody who may need us can't get us somehow. Unique individuals served. So unique individuals are people we haven't seen before. So this may involve that phone call situation I was talking about. It might involve today, a number of you actually will become in my stats as unique individuals, not all of you, but a few of you, because I've never spoken to you about breaking down barriers before. We've never talked about the resources. So you will be on my stats as a unique person. So in the last year, between our small staff of 5 people, we served over 6,000 people in that category. Number of hours in-house being in our facility. So this doesn't count all the community outreach or programs we do. Last year, almost 4,500 hours. We're busy, as we should be. We'd be worried if we weren't busy. That would be a concern. So I know you are familiar with the AODA 2025. Last year, we had some funding come our way due to our grant writer, Lucille, put together a wonderful grant, and our executive director, Teresa Gal. And we started a program called Start the Conversation. This was about talking about the AODA. Out of that, we kind of jumped around the world and we talked about what are the barriers to accessibility: systematic, technology, built physical environment. That's a big one because there's, as you know, next year, it's imperative that buildings reach that physical building code of accessibility. So we've tried to go around and educate people, 1, about it, and 2, what the requirements actually are. So we had a grant. So it's just a little slide about our grant. How can we help you? So if somebody's looking for information about AODA, we have a number of resources that are available: French, English, Braille, whatever, however somebody may need it, we have that resource. And if we don't have it, we will get it created for you. Our website has downloadable PDFs that you can access so that you can have right at your fingertips everything from what the requirements for the height of a accessible door button might be to how to make your website more accessible. So just a quick overview of things we would look for if you invited us to come to a space to do a physical audit. We are by no means experts, but we can give an overview. And we look at things like restrooms, elevators, objects that are protruding. That's always a big problem, right? So there may be an accessible entrance, but they've also stacked all the books that are going out to the library that day in that entrance, and now it's not accessible. So we look for things like that. So with just some tips. So, allow people to use their assistive devices, communicate with a person with a disability in a manner that accounts for their disability. This all works toward accessibility, and it all falls under that AODA. Some more compliance, other ways we can do it. I can't imagine any of this is new to you. Talk about language a lot. I'm on a bit of a rampage about this lately. Language has changed in how we refer and describe disabilities. And we at Breaking Down Barriers decided as part of our AODA campaign to start a conversation. Let's talk about language. Let's talk about how it works and how we use it. You can see that list. You'll see what's happened over the last number of years is we've gone from identifying somebody as their disability to identifying them as a person. So we no longer say somebody's a handicapped or handicapped. We say it's a person with a disability. We're not wheelchair bound. We're a person who uses a wheelchair. So this is more about the compliance and what's on our website. So I like to take every opportunity to promote the Access Now app. I'm not sure if you're familiar with it. This is an app that was developed by a Canadian girl who I think lived in Collingwood at one point, but I may be wrong. And literally what this lets you do when you go into any physical building is you can grade them. Is the door accessible? Is there a ramp? Can I reach the clothing in this store? Is the bathroom on the main level? Lots of places will talk about having an accessible bathroom, and then you find out it's down 12 stairs. So really not so accessible. I'm going to pick on Stainer a little bit. Stainer, lovely downtown, wonderful shops and stuff. If you're in a wheelchair or use a mobility device, you can't get into them. And they're trying to address that. Like, kudos to the accessibility committee over in Clearview. They are working very hard to address that, but it's something we identified very quickly. The Access Now app, you could say, well, I'm going to Stainer. What's Stainer like to get around in? And it would tell you. It's an app. So you would go on your phone to the app store. Like the way you would have an Access Now, and it's one word. So I might actually come in under 10 minutes, maybe not. So connect with us. As I said, you can get with us kind of anyway. We are really big believers in the communication. So I said last night, I spoke to a group here in lovely Meaford, and one of my tasks I gave them was to tell 2 people about us and tell 2 people about accessibility and what we're trying to do. So I put that on to you from there.
Okay.
That's it.
Thanks so much, Maureen. We
Thank
did
you.
go over the 10-minute limit a little bit, but all interesting stuff. And
Thank you.
in particular, pertaining to our committee and our interests. Questions? Yes, Heather, go ahead.
I was just wondering.
Well, no, I'm going to say no. So recently we gave it to one of the provost groups over in Wasaga. We would love to talk to everybody who will talk to us. We try to reach out to as many groups as we can. We don't always get uptake on it.
I think there is a whole different area probably, and they for sure are a better way of dealing with it. But police are in a bad way right now because they're called in situations they're not trained for. And knowing a little bit of or more of this.
Yeah, so we've worked with police services and particularly the OPP in Collingwood in other programs. Like we've had them come in and do presentations about fraud and how it impacts somebody with an intellectual disability may handle that very different than somebody who doesn't have that. So they're aware of us, but we've not done presentations. Yeah. We'd really like to. Anything else?
So using this Access Now app, does that mean we could, first of all, go on it to see how our downtown businesses rank? And after that, go on it and rank our downtown businesses?
Absolutely. So when you go into the app, and I'm sorry, I don't know how to project it to show you, but when you go in, you would put in, I'll pick on McGinty's. I haven't been there in a number of months, but it's a business I know, right? So you could go in there and then you search in the app for them. If somebody's already rated them, you can add to that. You can do your own rating. The idea behind this app is the more people who contribute to it, the more information other people will have. So it becomes a resource, right? So if you're traveling to particularly somebody traveling to our area and they don't know, they could go on there and have a look. And you rate them.
And so McKinsey's is a good example, since it is accessible to a wheelchair, strictly speaking, but you have to cross this rough gravel parking lot full of potholes.
Right,
Does this app allow
Yes.
enough detail?
Yep.
To capture that?
it does.
And the
Something
washroom
like
in the basement?
McKinsey's, the washrooms are downstairs, so I think the nice thing about this, it used to be that they just rate people or rate places whether they're accessible or not accessible. But I think, if I'm right, I was on the app once, that this describes things, so that, because everybody's got a little different ability, you know, with their chair, like if you had to pop a wheelie, you're not popping a wheelie in some place, but somebody else would put, oh, small staff, you know, can't pop into the whatever. So I think it makes it so you can, you know, really make some good choices. Do you want to take that chance or not? You know?
Well, and it's also that concept, and I'm sure you've discussed it here. What does that accessibility mean, right? So I may be able to go into a clothing store because they've had a stop the gap ramp come out front. I can get into the store, but I can't reach anything.
Yeah.
I can't do it, right? So that happens. And the app allows you to be that specific, right? And it's just a wonderful way of the community at large supporting the community.
Easy way for tourism.
Yeah.
To be able to rate their area.
Yeah.
So your statistics illustrate clearly how widespread disability is, and as I get older, in spite of being paralyzed, I think everybody I know is developing a disability.
I don't think I've met anybody who doesn't have a disability.
But as we
Truly.
tackle accessibility in downtown Meaford, do we have any statistics about how many people who hold a disability are in wheelchairs? Like, how many people are there in Meaford in wheelchairs?
I've done some research on that for other things. It's really difficult
Yeah.
to actually get those numbers. So yeah, it is difficult because it changes all the time, but most of the time they're looking at bigger populations, you know, but you can take, I think the latest one that we have something was when public health did.
Right.
And public health had some pretty, but you know, the trouble is, the ones that are seen, and then people think it's the old, oh, sorry. And forgot, it's memory of disability.
Yes.
But I think you have certain people that are out in the community and people think they're the only people in wheelchairs. But when you really start to look at the services in this area, you know, we have multiple group homes, we have people who are aging, and actually there's a huge population of people in wheelchairs, walkers, rollators, and you just even have to look at us having a long-term care, you know, and a lot of people getting out from there. That parade the walk they had, if you saw that, I mean, they had over 50 people in wheelchairs out on a walk down to the water. I mean, that's amazing. And those are people that their families take them out. So, yeah.
One of our big things we try to get through to businesses when we're doing the physical audits of buildings is by becoming physically more accessible. You're not just more accessible to people with disabilities, you're accessible to everybody, right? Accessibility services the whole community. And that's something we're really trying to get through. And I encourage people who may not have a disability to use the Access Now app, because you can see, right, what it's like.
Google, your question for potential population is wheelchair bound. And globally, it's about 1.5%. And in Canada, it's about 1%. It's significant.
Yeah.
Maureen, when you talk to businesses about, about their accessibility, limitations, I just, how much of your time is dedicated to the business sector? I don't know if that's a
So
fair
we're
question.
kind of on an on-call with that, right? So we put out there, we did a series of webinars back maybe last fall about AODA awareness specifically and about the physical requirements that are coming forth in the buildings. We had a great response from a number of local businesses, and we physically went in and did audits. So it's not our main what we do, it's kind of a side gig, for lack of a better word. And when we go in to do an audit, it's very important to understand we're not experts. I'm not a contractor, I'm not a builder, but I know what the requirements are, and I can come with a tape measure, and then we provide a report back to them. We also provide resources, because one of the things we're finding, we were over in a recreation center in Rama, and they don't have funding to make their building more accessible. So we were able to provide them with different resources at the county and provincial and federal level that might help them with funding to get up to it, right? We can also, when we go in, talk about where do you start with making your building accessible, right? There, you can't do everything all at once. So maybe the first thing is to get people in the door, right? The second thing is let's make sure the restrooms are accessible, because I think that's just human.
Well,
Goodies,
just,
right?
the first step is reaching out to them and making them aware.
Yeah, so we
I-
did radio ads, all kinds of things to try.
Mhm. Our committee here has commented a number of times that some of likely too many of our downtown businesses are just simply, if not inaccessible, certainly very, very difficult to access. And it's quite often fairly simple factors, whether there's a step or a bit of a ramp or an automatic door. I mean, these things come at a cost to the businesses and so on and so forth. Sometimes lighting around entranceways can be
Yeah.
a major factor, and it's something that a number of the businesses have joined in the battle against inaccessibility. So some did this many years ago, but surprisingly, there are some that are just.
Well,
Yeah.
and one of the
Reluctant.
roadblocks or barriers we come against is for some of the smaller businesses in downtown Collingwood, I will suggest here in Meaford as well, is they think it's the landlord's concern. The landlord needs to do that, and it's not. Under the act, it's actually the businesses. So they may have great intentions, but they're to make their business accessible, but they have to deal with the landlord at some point, and that's where we often
Yeah,
get pushed
Yeah,
back.
it's a good
right?
point. Good point.
So-
Yeah. Too many fingers in the pie.
Too many fingers in the pie, but we're just trying to educate people, and if you can improve the accessibility of your business by 1 or 2%, well, that's 1 or 2% better than it was. Right?
So in your opinion, when the AODA Act reaches December 31st, 25, what's gonna happen to all these businesses that have done nothing?
Well, so what's interesting is so the act out, and I won't have the numbers right, so I apologize. Depending on the size of your business and your organization, there's different reporting deadlines and dates and responsibilities. So a business of say 300 people is going to have different guidelines and accountability than breaking down barriers who has 5 employees, as an example. There's fines attached to non-compliance. Non-compliance includes if you're required to submit a report. If you don't submit your report by the deadline, that's non-compliance. Theoretically, you can be fined. What we have had a great puzzle in determining is how is that going to be policed, for lack of a better word? How is that going to be monitored? And nobody can give us that answer. I wish I had the answer, but we simply don't. And it's been phone calls, it's been research, it's been talking to people at the provincial level. We even went to Accessibility Standards Canada, which is federal, and said to them, what can you do to get the provinces in line? And they were kind of like, well, really nothing, right? I mean, we all understand the politics of that, but it's a big concern. How do we police it? Maybe the way it's policed is simply, you know, the businesses don't get the business. Nothing like a bad Google rap to make you pay attention.
I thought it might have been a good idea for Mr. Ford before he allowed all corner stores to sell beer and wine to have them made accessible. Now that wouldn't have covered all of the businesses, but it would have been a good first step. And anyway, maybe next time. But, any more questions or comments? Marie, thank you so much.
Oh, thank you.
For
I
not-
apologize for going
not-
over my
not
10
Trying
minutes.
to hurry you
No,
away,
it's good.
but.
No, it's a good idea.
You
to
may
hurry
have,
me
you
up.
may have something else on your list.
No, I do have to get back to work though. I do apologize for going over the 10 minutes, but it was a risk when I was invited, so that's on you. So here you go. Thank you. Please, you've got, I believe, have my email, right? Well, Alex, so by default, you, I guess. Mary can certainly get you in touch with me if needed. And by me, I mean breaking down barriers, though I'm the person you get. So we can certainly answer more questions, or we can come back, or we can do whatever you like.
Okay,
Thank you very much.
thanks.
I hope the rest of your meeting goes well.
Drive safely.
Thank you.
We have no deputations on our agenda. So we'll go ahead to number 5, and that's the approval of the minutes from our last meeting a couple of months ago, back on 11th of September. You've all had the minutes distributed. Could I get a mover and a seconder to put them on the table for discussion? Sherman and Heather, thank you. Any comments, questions, concerns from the minutes? We had a few visitors at that meeting. Cassandra especially, and Sarah are both here. If there are no questions, I'll ask those in favor of accepting the minutes. Thank you. Thank you. Now, number 6, that is entitled the Community Improvement Plan. And it's a fairly lengthy document that we've sent out, and it's what started out back about 20 years ago was a fairly simple, straightforward program, has somewhat grown in size and grown in options. And if you have had, I was interested, I think page 8 And, yeah, it mentions, some of the programs that are involved. Bart, did you want to speak to this community improvement plan? It's a series of, well, it started out as a grant program, primarily for businesses, and at the outset, it was only urban area businesses for them to improve their facades, and I think in particular their windows, their doors, making them more climate conducive, green energized, and that's where it started. And then we added loans to it, and then and it's something that I asked for is, well, why can't we expand this to the entire municipality? Because there are businesses out in the rural area that perhaps could take some advantage of this plan, and that was granted, and then we I got into actually some tax benefits from it too, that's fairly new. But anyway, it is a community improvement plan just designed to help businesses become more attainable, approachable, and enjoyable. And every year we get the requests, and it's I think successful. Likely the most notable recent one has involved the former fire hall next to the town hall. The good folks there applied for some assistance and received it, but a number of downtown businesses and farm related businesses too have joined in on the plan. So it's something that it's coming up under our 2025 budget for discussion, and as are a great many things, and we'll have to see what the opinions are going into 2025. It is interesting. I think our municipality was fairly early in southwestern Ontario getting into the community improvement plan, but now it's very common across the province for municipalities to try to help improve the situation. So any questions or comments or?
Through you, sir.
Okay. Oh, Bart, yes.
Yeah, this program, sorry, you caught me a little off guard earlier. This program is meant to do downtown improvements in a certain sector of the community. And you're right, we have had a few uptakes on the program. And they go through council as a one-off. And it has, again, this budget, it is in this budget, and it'll have some, again, more opportunities for people to participate in it.
So this is funding for businesses that they can apply for money under certain circumstances if they meet the criteria to make their business, to improve their businesses.
Basically, yes, basically.
Okay.
Yes.
I was quite impressed when I read through this, at the scope of things that, grants that would be given out. And I was pleased to see accessibility mentioned and downtown heritage buildings mentioned. And it doesn't take much thinking to put those together. And I don't see why we couldn't, under this program, encourage downtown businesses to apply for grants to at least let people get in the door. Some bigger renovations might be beyond this, but there are lots of places downtown that would benefit from letting people in the door. And I expect if there were grants available, they would be much more likely to step up and do something.
Thank you for that, and I have mentioned on a couple of occasions that when downtown businesses are applying through the community improvement program, that accessibility be one of the factors in their improvements, and I haven't given up on that because I think yes, more energy efficient windows and doors and so on and so forth are very very important. But as you say, there is a segment of our society that would appreciate being able to take advantage of especially whether it be a new restaurant or whatever. If you can't get in the door, it's very difficult to spend your money. Right. Yes.
Yeah, kind of along the same as what Bill was saying, but reading through it, I think we really have an opportunity where we can strengthen some of the wording around accessibility, almost like a reminder for people, because often you'll hear people that they've applied for the facade or something, and then they'll say, I didn't even think about applying to have a ramp, or I didn't think about this. So I think it might be an opportunity, because unless you're kind of in that situation all the time, sometimes you're not thinking about that. And I think there was a couple of sections in here, the one about the, improvement of the facades, the housing, and the tourism one, where I think if we put those reminders in about accessibility, we may get a little bit further. Plus, it starts to set an expectation, that we're really expecting you to have a place where people can get into and things like that. So they sounded like great grants, but again, I think sometimes we have to remind people of some of the things they need to think about.
So this budget is federally funded, or it's council
Well, there are
approves the budget?
there
the
are
money.
limits to the funding, to the grants and the loans. I believe it's 10%, Larry, am I right on that?
I don't know the number off the top of my head, but I do know that it's municipal funded and that it's grants that go to council and get approved on a one-off basis. So if an individual decides that they want to do something, go through this program, they go through staff, staff write the report, and then it goes to council for their final approval. That's the way I've done it in the past with other municipalities. I suspect, without reading this report, that that's the same as this would happen here. There are some great wording in here in regards to accessibility, and I personally, regardless of my position within the municipality and not just being not one of my committees, but being I personally believe that when we're doing CIP grants and they are looking at doing additional renovations to entrances, that that we should only be approving ones that are meeting the conditions set out in the policy, and those should be ones where if you're going to put a new door in, then that has to be an accessible door, and that everybody should have the ability to get into buildings and out of buildings safely.
For instance, energy efficient grant, as it's called. It will cover 50% of the project costs, but only up to a maximum of $7,500. So it's certainly, it's a help. And then you can also apply for a loan portion too, and that I think the loan I think is up to. No, actually, I think it's a minimum of 10,000 and can be up to 50,000. Not, I wouldn't say that maximum sum has not been asked for, but it's not that seldom that the higher amounts are asked for.
I saw that right at the beginning that it says this is a statutory plan. Does that mean that it's required under the Planning Act? We have to do one of these?
So statutory means that it's a required plan. I don't know if it falls under the Planning Act. It might be under different legislation. I'd have to look at that myself to figure out what legislation this is. But statutory, as that word defines, means that it's a required. So it's not something that individuals or municipalities can skirt around.
Go ahead, Heather.
How labor intensive is this? If I come in and ask for some money to make my store accessible, how long would it take for me to know whether I could apply or whether I was allowed the money for this or whether I would get it? Does this go to council and council decides, or council goes to another level?
Well, I have wondered if the accessibility committee, and Sue, you'll have to help me on this. This is pertaining to the loans, grants, etc. Having this accessibility component to them, and I've been wondering if first of all, can the accessibility committee pass a motion asking for that, and then have it forwarded to council for discussion? And at one time that was kind of a gray area, and can you help us on that? Yeah, that'd be a good.
Yeah, we can do a motion. Alex had already created a motion that the Accessibility Advisory Committee recommend to Council of the Municipality of Meaford that, so she started it, and whatever that recommendation is, you can let me know and I can put it in here and then you can bring it to council.
Okay, well, Mary?
Well, I was just saying, because we are kind of in that public domain rather than the private business domain, but because the money is coming from public, then I think whatever our thing would be just a recommendation or a statement. Is that kind of what you're thinking? That if someone, came, we could look at it and say, oh my gosh, that's like totally impossible, or we might say, from the look of this, from what the committee sees in your plans, this would be good. But, we would have really no standing, I don't think, if it's a private individual, right? But it is public money.
Well,
So I think we could do
no.
recommendation or say we reviewed it, so they know we reviewed it, but.
Where does this document actually come from on its way to us? Are we reporting back to the planning department? Is that it? Or to council? Has council
So-
seen this?
So this ECDev is kind of normally where the CIP kind of lives in most municipalities. Some municipalities have a strong ECDev department, some have weaker. When it doesn't live in that department, it kind of, you're right, it does kind of go to planning as, you know, one of the pillars of holding up that structure. So I've seen where the director of development services has done CIP grants to council for council's review to, you know, make a decision. You know, the old fire hall renovation. They got a grant, basically a tax relief grant. But they did also, that renovation was done to the Ontario Building Code, so they had to do, because the renovation was so extensive, they had to do accessible washrooms. They put an elevator in. You know, there's quite a bit of things that they had to do to actually make a building that had multiple levels. Even though the building is really 2 stories, just the way that building kind of was built originally, it's like 5 stories when you actually consider the 3 different steps in it and how that messes up each floor.
That's right. There are 5
So-
different elevator stops.
Yeah, so there's like 5 different elevator stops because of just where that building lines up, and you can't have a bathroom on every elevation because it just physically doesn't work. So like they have accessible bathrooms on the main floor, but you know, you can go to the elevator and go up to the patio, the outdoor patio, which is accessible. You can go down a level to the 2nd floor, which is accessible through the elevator. And then you go to the main floor, which is accessible, and then to the basement where there's a, you know, wine tasting room, which is accessible. But really, that building only has one group of accessible washrooms that are universal washrooms that meet all of the requirements of the accessibility requirements of the Ontario Building Code for that facility.
If we recommend that this document needs a little bit more reference to making things accessible in these different programs, as Mary was suggesting, to remind people that if you're going to apply for a grant, to include that, who does that recommendation go to?
The hurt.
So that recommendation would go to the CAO. And then the CAO would you know, determine how to disperse that recommendation to the appropriate departments. And then you know, when we create a policy, we would involve all those pieces and then have a, you know, a task outline so that we could actually, you know, understand that, you know, we got an application, this is how that task moves forward so that we could keep everybody in the loop. We don't have some of those things right now. We're kind of, you know, a little shy on that in many areas. Those are things that, you know, we hope to get more policies in place so that when we do get relatively rare applications, like we only get this maybe once or twice a year. So they're not like feeling like one-offs every time we get them. It's not like we're trying to find Waldo every time we get something like this. We actually have, you know, a book where we can say, okay, this is how it's done, and we can do this repetitively in the same manner, same consistency, and we don't have to rely on, you know, somebody who was here 2 years ago to make sure. We're not trying to reinvent the process every time, and that's right now I think where we struggle within in our own department or our own corporation. So hopefully that doesn't give you all the answers you want to hear, but it just tells you where we're at.
In that case, Mr. Chairman, I would like to make a motion that we support this community improvement plan, and in particular, its references to accessibility, but encourage more numerous mentions of the value of accessibility in carrying out projects. That's not worded very well, but that's the idea.
No, I think we get the intent of your meeting. Did you get that, Sue?
Yes.
Okay, we need a seconder for that, Mary. Any further discussion? All in favor of this? Okay, and as Bart has said, that this will, I think, likely firstly go to the CAO to let her be aware of what, and then we will leave it in her capable hands to follow up on it. But
I don't know if we had a mover.
I don't know if we had a mover and a seconder for that motion, did we?
yes, Stuart, Mr. Yates, and Mary Sullivan. You can add that it was passed unanimously if you want. Okay, well, thanks for that, and thanks Bart and Sue for your help. I don't know, we'll take it that far and see where it goes from there. But, it's,
I'm sure Kim will find this important and find it, as part of a bigger picture of how to put all the pieces together. It's one of many pieces that we're working on, and it's an important piece, but to get all of them together is really important. So I don't want it to feel that you're not being heard. It's just that we need to get them heard into the right.
well, the topic of economic development has come up rather large on our budget agenda. So and this, in my estimation, would fit in with the economic development possibilities for the future. Okay, it's good. Thanks so much for that discussion. If there's nothing more about the community improvement plan, number 7 says items for information, and Sue, I'll have to ask you, and I don't know if you're too aware of this, but one of our committee members, Wendy Best, sent some comments and questions to Alex Cochet about I guess Wendy's been doing a bit of traveling around the urban area, and she had some she forwarded some questions, and Alex sent them to me, but I'm wondering if you got them. I'll just throw out a sample. There were likely about half a dozen that pertain to well, most of them pertain to accessibility. Now, one she asked about was the front door on the administration office, and Bart, that's on the 2025 budget, is it not? Is that I'm not, was it a 2024 that didn't get? Yeah, okay, but it hasn't been completed yet, has it? Or it's just like it's supposed to be a new front doors and I'm sure they'll have the push button for opening them, but yeah, I was wondering about if they could be retractable, but I don't think we have the space there for something like that, do we, on the admin office?
No, on 23 Trowbridge, we don't have the space for, the sliding doors that, are motion censored, where you come up and they slide open and close.
Mhm.
I do think that project has started. I don't know if that project's been completed, if we're waiting for some hardware to be finished on that project. It's not my project. But I do think that they have started with the replacement of those doors. I do know that we put a new front counter at 23 Trollbridge that's accessible. They did get a building permit through the building department that forced them to make the openings a minimum of 37 and 5/8 inches wide. It sounds kind of a crazy number, but it gets done in metric and gets converted in imperial. So for people who work in imperial, and we work in both, but imperial, that's what we understand. So, so that doorway going, so half doorway that goes in from the counter back into the working space, that's accessible now. There's a lower counter space for accessibility. That's it is to the front door, which is, you know, now accessible. But I can't tell you for certain if they actually put the push buttons in, but you think they've done that?
They had the office closed when they replaced the doors.
Yeah, I know they closed the office, replaced the doors, but I don't know if they actually put the hardware in, which is the automatic door strikes where you hit the button and the door automatically opens. I do know that project's underway. I don't know if it's finished. They haven't asked me out to do an inspection yet of it, but that project is well on its way to being completed.
Thanks, thanks for that, Mark. Most of her other questions are, and I'll make a point, or Alex or Sue can make a point, that they're more for, I think Rick McNaught or Steve Burgess mainly for in the recreation. So I don't, it would be, I think, difficult for you to answer them.
Through you, Barry, you can always ask, and I can always try to answer the questions the best I can.
Just no, it's really no. There is one, and you may know this. If I would assume if washrooms, say at the parks, are wheelchair accessible, they should have the symbol on the door. And she thought there were a couple of doors that were wheelchair accessible but didn't have a symbol on it. And that's, again, that's kind of a housekeeping thing, but
yeah. So they're in my time in Guelph, we considered we had kind of universal bathrooms, which are the full-fledged washrooms will have the light above the door. You can see it when you go in, you hit the button, you open the door. You go in, you press a button to lock the door behind you. When you're on the water closet, you can hit a button that actually flashes the light above the exterior of the door that tells you that it's an emergency and you need help. We call that, you know, a truly universal washroom. In Guelph, my time as working for the city of Guelph, we have what we called universal light. They weren't quite as adapt as those bathrooms. Those are fairly expensive to do with all the electronics. But they still were accessible. So they still had the right width for the door opening, the minimum of 38 inches for the door to swing, or the offset hinges so the door would open properly so that if someone with a wheelchair could get in. Still had the 5-foot turning radius where the wheelchair can turn around properly. And it still had the distance between the water closet and the sink so that the wheelchair could get to that space. And then the 18-inch offset from the center of the water closet to the wall was still as required. And then the grab bars behind the water closet at about 4 inches above the toilet bowl. And then the L-shaped bracket on the opposite side, all which were accessible. And those were done in different locations where they weren't required to actually have a truly universal washroom, but still provide, you know, an accessible facility for people.
Thanks for that. Okay, I think we'll leave the rest of them to follow up on with Rick or Steve. Yes, Mary, yeah, go ahead. Yeah. And
Uh,
are you wanting to go on to committee inquiries?
no, well,
No.
it was sort of more along the same lines as what Wendy was doing, so I just
Yeah,
just
okay.
had one
Good.
one
good.
thing. Unfortunately, I couldn't get to the Remembrance Day service on the Sunday, but I had a friend there take a picture, and I'd like to know what the plans are for a proper stage at Meaford Community Center, because it was totally inaccessible, didn't even have railings going up the stairs, and yet there were things placed that people could look at. And so, I mean, there's been maybe not a really good ramp on the stage in the past, but I just wonder, is that temporary? Because it's so non-compliant, it's really bad, actually. It sends a really bad message. Yeah.
Art and
Uh, I have no idea. Sorry, I can't answer your question with any real gusto. I'm sorry, but I do believe that when municipality does things, we should be doing them that are compliant and that they do meet, the standards of the Ontario Building Code or the ODOA.
I would
And-
say for the last 20 years, they've had a ramped, they have had a ramped stage. I'm saying sometimes measurements weren't all that good, but even up to when we had the kickoff for the 150, the stage was there and it was ramped if someone needed it. So I'm thinking this is temporary, but I just wondered whether anyone knew.
Yeah, I can't give you a really good answer for that. I'm sorry.
any other inquiries?
I had a couple of questions.
Sure, go ahead.
If we have a new idea that hasn't been mentioned about accessibility in Meaford that we want to bring to the committee, how do we go about doing that apart from ranting a little bit at the meeting? Do we email Alex or?
Yeah, Sue,
I would think so. Does she do a call for agenda items? No. Then so what I would think is you would bring them to the agenda review meeting, bring the ideas to the agenda review meeting. So when you have your agenda review meeting, the idea is you bring someone from the committee to the agenda review meeting. So then if you have an idea for the agenda, you could bring it to that meeting. I'm pretty sure that's how Alex has it set up.
does that help you out? Answer.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
The other question is, who among the staff should we be contacting if we have a question in passing? I mean, I've dealt with Alex and Margaret and Sarah and now you. It's changed every meeting I've been at. Who is the staff member we should be contacting if we have a general question?
Right now.
Yeah.
I would say Alex, because that's her position.
Thanks. I would have suggested Alex, but sometimes responsibilities change. Okay, are there any other inquiries or roundtable? Yeah, go ahead, Mary. Yeah.
No, just wanted to let people know, because Maureen was here over the last few months, we've had 2 volunteer trainings in town, and it was really nice that almost every member of this committee was at that training in September, and we had 25 more people last night also doing the training. So I just wanted to say that I thought that was pretty fantastic, and that maybe each year we'll try to do something like that because it was pretty practical. So that was great. And the other thing I just wanted people to know that on November 28th at Meaford Hall at 1 o'clock, we're having a really special concert called Beyond 150 Spirit of Inclusion. And we have 10 performances that are done by a variety of performers who have diverse abilities. So we have the Reach Choir, we have EFL, we have the Roxy Star program. So anyway, it's going to be pretty fun time, and we pretty well have filled the bottom of the of the hall of the Opera House already. So yeah, so it's pretty cool. We have the Dancing with Parkinson's, and five of the people who are dancing are in wheelchairs. So that'll be kind of a little bit different. So yeah, so just to let you know.
Okay, 28, is that a Friday? Thursday, and there's a 10 o'clock?
It's at 1 o'clock, 1 to 2:30. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Oh, and I should just add to the other kind of cool thing that's going on with Christmas on the Bay is they will have an accessible outdoor stage this year that's been built, and 2 accessible vendor huts, so that hopefully eventually we'll find a vendor who actually needs to have the hut accessible, that for them to be able to sell their wares. We didn't get one this year, but yeah, so that's pretty special, and that was
Gonna be a busy spot, during that. Something I just wanted to throw out to the committee, I was talking to, John Howard, just recently, and Truda, one of our members, is having some difficulties, and, I just wondered if the committee, and again, we'll ask Sue for her advice. If committee, I'm sure the municipality has an email for Truda. If on behalf of the committee and the municipality, we could just send best wishes, get well soon wishes to her. Is that reasonable to the committee members? Because she's been having a bit of a challenge the last few months. So if we could do, I'd be glad to do that on behalf of the committee, but Sue, if I don't want to infringe upon your your responsibilities. Okay, that'll be fine. Okay. There is a number 9 here. Thanks, Heather. Nice to take care. We still have a quorum. If I need to read this. Number 9, the committee will consider correspondence received by members of the public during each meeting. To share your comments, thoughts, or concerns with members of the committee, the public can send an email to accessibility@meaford.ca. When emails are received to this email address, they will be compiled into a correspondence list, which is then distributed to committee members prior to each meeting. The cover sheet of the list will be included on each meeting agenda. The contents of the correspondence list are not included on the public agenda to protect the privacy and personal information of those residents who choose to send in their thoughts and comments. The date of the next meeting, I'm assuming we'll meet in January, Sue, but we'll have to get that determined. Yeah, okay. Gee, that's way next year, which isn't too far away anymore. Okay, if there's nothing else, I'll call the meeting adjourned. Thank you so much. 3:50. Thanks for your help.